Scream and Scary Movie are two of my favorite movies of all time, believe it or not. Scream, of course, is a satire of the horror genre, whereas Scary Movie is a full-on parody, specifically of Scream, which is already itself a satire, kind of a parody in some ways. Scream, I believe to be genuinely brilliant, and actually a great movie. It's my favorite slasher movie. The four Scream movies I would consider my favorite horror franchise. I just think they hit the tone right on the head. Of course, when it comes to horror, which is one of my favorite genres, I love movies like Hereditary and Midsommar and The Witch, movies that really have something to say, movies where the horror is in service of something more thematic and bigger. But Scream is sort of, to me, the ultimate fun horror movie. It's goofy in a lot of scenes. There are scenes with genuine tension, such as, I think, the first scene has some genuine tension, as does the final scene. But it's not a horror movie in the traditional sense, in that it makes fun of a lot of horror movies. It's directed, of course, by Wes Craven. The scene that I think really sums up the concept of Scream is there's this character who's very obsessed with horror movies. He works at a video store, and he's sitting on the couch watching Halloween, and he's saying, look behind you, he's behind you! And the whole time, the killer is right behind him. There's also, of course, the classic, these are the rules of surviving a horror movie, that are laid out in Scream, where the same character lays out the rules for surviving a horror movie, which of course is making fun of a lot of the classic slasher films like Halloween. And it does, in some ways, parody and satire movies like Halloween, like Nightmare on Elm Street. Scary Movie, on the other hand, has less to say about the genre as it is just a full-on, ridiculous parody. But it is one of the movies that absolutely makes me laugh harder and more frequently than anything else. I've rewatched it 3 times during quarantine because it's just a fun watch. It's just such a funny movie because it's so ridiculous. It's just such a weightless, breezy, hour and 24-minute laugh fest to me. It's definitely not for everybody. It copies a lot of the story from Scream. Not copies, but, it is a direct parody of Scream, and as well as other horror movies like I Know What You Did Last Summer, but most notably of Scream. And I think it parodies Scream extremely well by just taking scenes directly and upping the parody factor that they already had of satiring these slasher movies, and times it by 100. I love that idea, and it's just so funny. But I'd say, if you enjoy, say, Family Guy, as I do, then you would enjoy the Scary Movie franchise. And fun fact, Scary Movie actually was the original title for Scream. But they changed it at the last minute. They already had crew hats and t-shirts that said Scary Movie. It's funny because I saw Scary Movie before I saw Scream, and so as I was watching Scream for the first time, it was hard not to see all these things like, oh my gosh, that's the scene that Scary Movie was parodying. But now that I've watched Scream twice, and Scary Movie more times than I can count, because it actually was among the first R-rated movies that I discovered with some of my friends back in early high school. So that's another reason why that has some really fond memories for me, but Scream just has a genuinely intriguing story and genuinely compelling characters, in my opinion, that make it, that elevate it above just being a parody. Unlike Scary Movie, which is at its core a parody, I think that Scream at its core is a genuinely effective horror slasher. It's to me the quintessential teen slasher movie, because it takes a lot of those concepts from, like I said, Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street, deconstructs them, plays on them, and subverts expectations because of it. So I would recommend both of these movies. Probably check out Scream before you check out Scary Movie, but if you're already a fan of Scream and you've never seen Scary Movie, I would recommend it. Again, Scary Movie is far from, I don't know, what you'd consider some high art comedy movie. It's absurd, but I really admire that about it. They're two of my favorite movies for different reasons, despite the fact that on a surface level, they essentially have the same plot, because Scary Movie it's a parody of Scream, so it's funny that these are two movies that I really love for different reasons, despite the fact that they are similar on a surface level. So that is sort of an analysis and review of Scary Movie and Scream, and I hope you enjoyed my rambling talking about two of my favorite parody satire horror flicks. Stick around for more talking about movies. I love doing movie news too, but every once in a while I like to talk about movies in a more analytical way. So thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next one. Hang in there. Bye.